Let us help you reach your peak in retirement. It's time for Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee.
Hey everybody, welcome into the podcast. Sean and I hanging out, talking about the high anxiety times we find ourselves in currently this go around on the podcast. Thanks to a variety of economic circumstances, people are certainly a little bit more edgy than they have been from a financial standpoint, at least the last couple of years. So that's the topic of conversation today on Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Hanging in there. Definitely dealing with a lot of interesting stuff like we all are. The world is continuing to be interesting. I filled up my truck the other day for the first time ever. I had to pay the triple digits. It was $101, I think.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, pretty hefty. So it's frustrating, right? We got a lot going on, so people are pretty stressed out.
I saw a video of some guy filling up his RV, and I didn't realize how big some of those gas tanks are, but it was a 170-gallon tank. It cost him $944.
Ow. Ow. Yeah, I bet that is rough, going to go out and do something. I imagine, truckers as well, right?
Right.
So that's some big stuff going on. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today, Sean, on the podcast, because, in the last 3 years, yes, take away the COVID stuff. I'm talking more financially based, but the last 3 years, the market has been, pretty stupid, right? 20+% each of the last 3 years,
right?
Is how it's finished off on 19, 20, and 21. So ever since basically the beginning of 22, we've been pretty volatile, and now we add the whole Ukraine thing, so that there's just more adding to it. So I wanted to kind of get your take on it. I'm going to shuffle around a little bit on this list just based on the order. I want to start there with the Ukraine stuff. People are fretting about the continued economic effects. At the time we're taping this podcast, I saw that they just Biden wants to kick it up another $800 million in aid to the Ukrainians. So it's another $1 billion on our price tag. Not saying that they don't need help. It's just these things add to the worry about what our economy is going to do.
Right. Yeah, and this is an interesting topic because when the media gets a handle on everything, when the media talks about Russia, Ukraine, and we finally stopped importing oil from Russia, which isn't going to have a huge effect on us. Yeah, we saw pricing at the pump go up, but then you saw crude hit less than 100 a barrel again. Most of it's emotional. And what you have to remember with Russia and Ukraine is that, and we talked about this, Mike Sorrentino, our CIO, talked about it a couple weeks ago, is that the Russia-Ukraine conflict for our country is humanitarian. It's a humanitarian issue that we should be there to support those people. From an economic perspective, because we're mostly a consumer spending economy, there's not going to be a huge effect on us. You look in January, our consumer spending as a country was up 4%. In February, we added 700,000 jobs. And so from an economic perspective, there's a lot of emotion going on when it comes to Russia, Ukraine. But from a consumer spending standpoint, we're still spending money here domestically. We're still spending money to buy goods and services and do trips and do those sorts of things. So it's not going to be it's not a huge economic disruption for us right now. Doesn't mean that it may not be in the future. It's just where we're sitting right now.
And I think that's the scare, right? Is because it is pretty volatile, and we wonder, what's happening and how, will it launch into something bigger when you have planes, crashing and getting very close to Poland and NATO-based countries. It makes it very nerve-wracking. And back to our conversation about the gas, whether it's affecting us or not, we've been slowly increasing. Gas was $30 a barrel in April of 2020, and it was over $130 a barrel in February of 22, right? So regardless of whatever the reason is, pipeline conversations, whatever you want to go with, it's still that shell shockness of people saying, man, this is just costing me a ton. And you're hearing people say, well, maybe I should maybe I should ask if I can work from home longer, or, we're getting mask restrictions off, but then we're saying, well, now I just can't afford to go anywhere.
Right. Driving less. And you saw it, $101. I filled up my Yukon and it was, I think, $86, but I had a 35-cent off coupon.
Hey, man.
Per gallon.
Take it.
Yeah.
Per gallon. That's awesome.
Well, I just based on where my wife buys our groceries, they've got their own, it's like Costco. They got their own gas station. Yeah. So they get you by getting you to go buy groceries there, and you get discounted gas.
And that's the average price. A buddy of mine who lives in the Wake County, not Wake County, Cook County area, which is Chicago, basically, it's like $5.70 or $5.80 a gallon.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, and I guess for retirees, you just mentioned a guy with an RV. I guess the question becomes are people starting to feel like, man, we're loosening up, we're getting some of the COVID stuff behind us to where we can maybe get back out and enjoy retirement. And now we are a little worried about what's that going to do to our plan if we're, spending, $900 on a gas tank, right?
I know, right? Oh, and I get a lot of questions, Sean. Should I not spend money? Or what's this going to do to our plan? Mm-hmm. And those are valid concerns, but as a country, we haven't seen consumer spending slow down or stop. We're continuing to spend money, with the exception of the supply chain issues that we've had.
Yeah, we're wanting to. Apparently, in a lot of places, it's still just a matter of getting things.
It's can you get the product to do that? So habits really haven't changed, and there's a lot of talk around inflation and yes, inflation is here, but it's still not changing habits for the most part. People are still spending money, and until habits change and money stops getting spent, the economy is going to continue to move forward.
Well, let's go into that piece, because that's another part of the equation that people are concerned about. We're not technically into a recession, Sean, but this is very, very similar. I mean, eerily similar in a lot of ways to the mid to late 70s. With the gas issues and the interest rates being where they were or they are, and then the Fed talking about moving them up. For a lot of people who didn't live through that, and you and I were young, so I mean, if it wasn't affecting the price of our Bubblicious, we probably didn't care.
Well,
right?
Easy, man. I wasn't around in the 70s.
Yes, you were. Get out of here.
80.
Were you really?
Yeah, 80.
Okay, well, I was born in 70, so hush. Either way, it was affecting my Bubblicious. I wasn't paying attention. All right. But the point being is that in order to break the inflation, the Fed started raising the rates a lot in the 70s. And there's talk of our Fed currently maybe doing 4 to 6 rate increases. And we're hearing, February's inflation numbers were 7.9. We're hearing maybe double digits before the year ends out. So if the Fed starts ticking up, could that push us into recession? That's the conversation piece now.
It could. But remember, when inflation rises, the markets tend to rise. And the bigger issue with that is, well, if the Fed starts to raise rates, what is that going to do economically? Yeah, it could push us a little bit into a recession, but rising interest rates isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Okay.
Especially for seniors and savers, because as interest rates rise, then you can start to get some sort of income from bonds.
Maybe we get to 3% once again or something on a CD, right?
Right. And I mean, if you got a 3% CD now, you are in happy as can be, but we're just not seeing that. So what does that do? That forces people to move into the markets to try to get return, to try to get growth, because they can't get it in the bond market. And so as interest rates start to rise, we'll see a little bit of a reset back into normalcy where, yes, now you can start to get income and dividends yield from the bond market as well, which will help long term, which will help seniors and savers.
Well, and I guess the argument somebody's going to say is, yeah, but great. What's 4% or 5% CD at the bank going to do me when inflation's 8%, right? But I think if you're thinking you're going to outpace inflation, even in the 70s when you could get a 15% CD,
right?
Or inflation was still higher. So I mean, the bank products are just not going to beat inflation. Now, you might find some ways where you can keep up with it at times in history, but I don't think it's going to beat it. And so you're still going to have something in the market so that that's the best place to try to beat inflation, which kind of ties it all back in together as saying, well, that brings us back to those concerns about the volatility. Is this we're seeing it everywhere, right? I saw a pretty funny meme, Sean. It said Mother Nature's just tossing out temperatures like they're Powerball numbers, right? It's 36, 12, 80, 15. It's all over the place, and the market's been doing that for several weeks now, right? Up, down, up, down. It's like it's just just ping ponging everywhere.
Well, think about when Russia finally broke and invaded Ukraine. The market was down 800 points in the morning. Mm-hmm. By the afternoon, it was up 400. Same day. You're talking a 1,200 point swing. Mm-hmm. And when we see those big swings, the big 800 points, the down, up 600, a lot of that is emotions. So we're starting to see emotions play into it. And when we get back to some normalcy and emotions are out of the way, that's when the markets are up 100 points, 200 points, down 50.
Yeah.
Back to a little bit of normalcy. But we saw such a buildup before Russia invaded Ukraine that there was so much emotion around it that's when we saw, regardless of our economic situation, we saw all this emotion around, well, what's going to happen? And we've seen some reductions in our market this year.
Well, at the time we're taping this, and of course it'll change, infinitely between now and the time it gets posted, but it's up about 1.1%, right at about 34,000 on the Dow. I'm talking about, and the high was 52-week high was like 36. So it's not it's not super far off, like 2,000 points. And when you're talking about this high of a number, that's not that detrimental. But I think the indicator for Sean, for people, is if this movement causes you, because what happens is people feel like if I'm not doing something, I'm doing something wrong, right? So they feel like if I don't make a move, I'm doing something wrong. And that's where the danger comes in, especially for retirees. You feel this urge to go change something, and maybe a change isn't needed. And that's why it's important to have the strategy, the plan, and have that advisor you can call up and go, all right, Sean, I'm nervous, dude. What should I do?
Exactly. And we look at we just did a whole big block of reviews in February, March. And the conversation runs around, all right, what is your income? How's your income look? Are you comfortable with it? And then if you're not using some of your assets, what are we doing with them? So, in some of our investment strategies, we're dividend driven. So dividends are being reinvested. Look at dividends right now as a great way to dollar cost average back into your portfolio and go discount shopping if you're not using the money.
Okay.
And right now the markets are depressed, so everybody wants to go to Costco and buy, 50,000 packs of toilet paper for cheap.
Right.
But the mindset is, well, when the market's down, I'm just going to sell. Well, why wouldn't you go buy more at a discount? You're trying to buy everything else at a discount. So that's what we're doing with dividends right now. Is let's just reinvest and buy things at a discount. And as the markets start to correct back up or move upward positively, you've bought all these shares at a lower price. Now your recovery is quicker.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's the idea for sure. So, that's basically just what we wanted to talk about this week on the show, was these high anxiety times that we're in. So if you got some questions, you need a little help, make sure that you're checking with your professional, your financial professional, before you take any action. Like I just mentioned, it's easy to want to feel like we need to do something. It kind of satisfies some sort of urge to make us feel better that, hey, I've done this, I've made this move, I've accomplished something. But a lot of times, especially when it comes to the financial situation, we make the wrong moves because we're listening to those emotions that Sean said, and we wind up, maybe hurting ourselves. So before you take any action, always check with a qualified professional like Sean and the team at Elevated Retirement Group. You can give them a jingle at 855-50-RETIRE, or just stop by the website, elevatemyretirement.com. That's elevatemyretirement.com. Don't forget to subscribe to us on whatever platform you like to use, like Apple or Google or Spotify, and that way you can get new episodes as well as check out past ones. Thanks, my friend, for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. I hope you have yourself a great week.
Thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Oh, by the way, it's St. Patty's Day when we're dropping this. So are you a green beer kind of person?
It's all the same.
Yeah.
Right?
It's weird to me. I can't do it. I don't know why. It just weirds me out. It just bugs me. But either way.
Tastes the same. Just throw some food coloring in it.
I know. It just weirds me out. But anyway, you have yourself a great St. Patty's Day if you go in for that sort of thing. And make sure you got some green on so you don't get pinched. And we'll see you next time here on Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee.
Investment advisory services offered through Elevated Capital Advisors, LLC, and SEC registered investment advisor.